Hello guys, and welcome back to a brand new video from the Pickles Park Reviews. Now, a couple of weeks back we found out that series 13 was going into production, and I made a video on that detailing that obviously it was going into production, and also that the episode count had been slashed from 10 episodes and a Christmas special to 7 episodes and a Christmas special. And outside of that, we didn't know anything that was happening in series 13. I mean, why would we? It had literally only just gone into production. However, we do now have some news, albeit some leaked news based on set photos. However, it's pretty obvious, even though it's not been officially confirmed, it's pretty obvious when looking at these set photos that something is going down in series 13. A villain is returning, and judging by the thumbnail, you will all know which villain is coming back. It's the Sontarans. Now, the Sontarans are villains that I quite like, actually. I feel like in the modern series especially, they've been done a massive disservice. Now, in the classic series, outside of the Dalek, Cybermen and the Master, the Sontarans were the next best villain in terms of returning appearances. The Sontarans appeared in a number of different stories, from the John Pertwee era all the way to the Colin Baker era, and I'd argue that the Sontarans' best appearance is still the Time Warrior, which is a brilliant story, and that is their debut story, for those who do not know, with John Pertwee. Has only one Sontaran in the form of Lynx, and essentially this Sontaran crash lands in medieval England and is rescued by these medieval soldiers and wants to get his craft working again to go off into the stars to the battle with the Rutans. So he takes these scientists out of time to help them work on his craft. These medieval soldiers want something from him as well. He has to build them robots so Irongrod, the leader of this medieval castle, and his kingdom can fight another medieval castle. And it's a really great story, actually. It obviously introduces Sontarans, introduces Sarah Jane, and I think it's great for how it depicts the Sontarans, because it obviously depicts them as ruthless warriors. Link's literally his constant thought throughout the entire thing is the fact that he wants to get back to the war with the Rutons. You can see that they're very military minded, but I think what the Time Warrior does so well is that by pitting Lynx, the Sontaran, up against Irongrod and working with Irongrod, you can really see a difference. They're both obsessed with war. However, Lynx is very intelligent and practical about it. However, Irongrod is essentially just dumb. He just wants war and he doesn't care whatever. He's very primitive, obviously, because it's medieval times. However, with that sense, you get a great deal of contrast that the Sontarans, because they're obsessed with war, doesn't mean they're not intelligent, and by having that comparison there, you really get a sense of just how intelligent the Sontarans are, and they're not just brainless warmongers. However, over time, particularly in the Revive series, I feel like Irongrod became what the Sontarans were. They started off as Lynx and slowly transitioned to Irongrod, what they weren't supposed to be. Now, throughout the classic series, the Sontarans arguably get worse. The Sontaran experiment and the invasion of time aren't two stories I'm particularly fond of. However, the Sontarans aren't done bad in it. They're not the reasons why the stories aren't great. You get to the two Doctors. Again, the Sontarans aren't amazing in that. However, I'd argue that that's the strongest classic Sontaran story other than the Time Warrior. Maybe not in terms of the Sontarans themselves, but just in terms of the story quality. And then the Sontarans didn't appear again until the Revive series. They are mentioned in Trial of a Time Lord, in Colin Baker's Power Mad Conspirator's speech, Dalek, Sontarans, Cybermen, you know, that kind of stuff. But they weren't actually referenced, I believe, until Series 4 in the Revive series, when they came back in their only actual dedicated story in the Revive series. And because Strax has appeared so much, you forget that the Sontarans actually haven't had a fully fledged story in the Revive series since their reintroduction in the Sontaran Stratagem in the Poison Sky. And again, I quite like this story. It's not perfect, it's got some weird things about it. Yeah, I think in terms of the portrayal of the Sontarans, it's actually very good. It really emphasises their love of war and their love of battle. I think it does it great, as well as putting a big emphasis on their cloning aspect. The fact that they're clones, it really emphasises that in the story. And overall, I think it is actually a great representation of the Sontarans. I think Christopher Ryan general style is actually really good. I'd argue he's one of the best Sontarans outside of Lynx, obviously portrayed by Kevin Lindsay. So you get the Sontarans return for that bit in Pandora Opens with Christopher Ryan again. Again, they're represented alongside the Daleks and the Cybermen. They're the only other speaking villain in the Pandora Alliance scene. So again, after Series 4, it seems like they're almost being upheld like they were. Their classic status of being one of the big villains among the Daleks and Cybermen had seemingly returned. Well, that's the impression you'd get, even though there wasn't a Sontaran story in Series 5. By their appearance in the Pandora Opens, you'd get the impression that the Sontarans, after their reintroduction in Series 4, were going to have a big impact on revived Doctor Who, and their classic status of being one of the big villains outside of Dalek, Cybermen and Master was going to be reintroduced. However, that really doesn't happen. In Series 6, we're introduced to Strax, who is the only Sontaran we've seen up until this point. And I think in Series 6, in A Good Man Goes to War, Strax is actually quite funny. I quite like him in there, and I wish he would have stayed in Series 6 and not featured again. Because in Series 6, Strax, he is funny, he's on the Doctor's side, and he is a bit of a joke, yet his jokes feel more organic. They feel more of like a little like poking of a stick towards the Sontarans, which is really nice, you know, with his obsession with war. It plays on that quite well, as well as his death, saying how, you know, glad he is to have died in battle. It's a really nice scene, actually. It really just deconstructs the Sontarans quite well, and it was refreshing to see a Sontaran on the Doctor's side. That was quite nice. However, unfortunately, Strax kept coming back and back, and each time he came back, he became more stupid. That intelligent poking a stick at the Sontarans humour you got in A Good Man Goes to War, by the time you get to the Snowmen, it really just comes down to Strax just thinking everything can be solved with grenades and misgendering people, and him being a butler, him being an idiot, essentially. That is all he is in the Snowmen onwards, which is unfortunate in the 4 appearances he makes after A Good Man Goes to War. Strax is really irritating and just a joke. In A Good Man Goes to War, it was a nice parody of the Sontarans, a one-off. However, the fact that the Sontarans never came back in a fully fledged story, and all we kept on getting was Strax, and Strax just getting stupider and stupider, the fact that he wasn't even a Sontaran anymore, he was just a walking joke, then that meant that it was almost impossible for them to bring the Sontarans back, because Strax has become just a joke. And even though Strax hasn't appeared since 2014, his legacy is still there. I think you look at the time of the Doctor, 2 Sontarans appeared that aren't Strax and are just idiots, exactly like him. So essentially, in the audience's mind, the Sontarans were just idiots, and they couldn't be taken as a credible threat, which is probably why Moffat and Chibnall up until this point hasn't actually thought of bringing the Sontarans back, even though you look at their classic Doctor Who status, you would have thought there would have been a lot more Sontaran stories than there has been, and I think it's purely to do with Strax and his impact on that. Where it seems like now, in Series 13, Chris Chibnall is saying, fuck it, we're going to bring the Sontarans back. And I'm very happy with this. As I said, I think the Sontarans have a lot of potential. You know, they're little warmongers. They never say no to a fight. And yeah, I just think it's really great, and that military aspect of them is great to deconstruct, and I think that it would be really great, you know, to have another Sontaran story, because I think there's a lot you can do with them, and I never think their full potential has really been met. There's a lot more you could do with them, and one of my ideas was always taking the Sontarans and putting them in a historical setting, typically in a war, and seeing how they'd impact that. For me, I always thought it would be great to see the Sontarans in the English Civil War and see how they'd impact that. That's actually a story idea I had in my head. Where it seems like we're going to get the Sontarans in the Crimean War, or the Crimean War. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it, and due to my mispronunciation, you'll probably be able to tell that I know absolutely nothing about the Crimean War. I don't even know what happens in it. So the fact that we're getting historical is actually really pleasing to me, because I really like that some of the historicals we've got in the Jodie Whittaker era based on historical time periods that I just had no idea about. I had no idea really who Nikola Tesla was, and then that episode, Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror, became one of my favourites of Jodie's run, just because it felt educational but also in an organic way, and I really enjoyed learning about it while also having a good Doctor Who story in there. So I'd be really interested to see how they tackle the Crimean War, and it would be really interesting to be educated on that as well, because even though it's a time period a lot of people know about, it's nothing you really get taught in schools, and as someone who's done GCSE and now I'm doing A-level history, it's not a time period that I think has ever really been referenced, so it would be certainly nice to you know, explore that, and I think that'd be really cool to see a time period that I'm not really familiar with in Doctor Who. And obviously we're seeing the Sontarans in this, and judging that it's a war, it'll be really interesting, as I said before, to see the Sontarans' impact on this. And as I said, it's just great to see the Sontarans back. They've been a bit of a joke recently. They've only had one dedicated appearance in the Revive series, so it'd be great to bring them back now. Strax hasn't been around for a good 6 years. I feel like now time has passed for the Sontarans to be reintroduced as a credible threat, and hopefully Chibnall is going to do that. As I said before in other videos, I'm not a big fan of what Chibnall's done with the main villains. You all know my thoughts on Resolution and his writing of the Daleks. I wasn't a big fan of it. Obviously the Cybermen, I wasn't a big fan of how he wrote those as well. I think the Master's been really his only success in terms of the big three, and that's mainly down to Sacha Dhawan's performance. So it'd be really interesting to see how he writes the Sontarans, and I would be a bit worried, but I think the fact that Moffat essentially wrote them as a joke after Pandora opens would further indicate that Chris can't go any lower than that, let's say. So I think that the fact that he's made the decision to bring them back shows that he clearly wants to write a good Sontaran story, and I have good hope for that. And I think putting the Sontarans in a historical setting, it's going back to the roots of the Time Warrior. This can only be a good thing. This can only be a good story and a good move. As I said, I'm a fan of the Sontarans, and I think that the fact that Christian will bring them back as a credible threat is a good thing, and trying to do something different with them, I'm a big fan of that. And obviously Sontarans coming back, that's a big thing. Crimean War, that's a big thing. But also something that you'll notice if you've seen the set photos is that their costumes have been changed. Now in the classic series, the Sontarans wore grey and black. That was just their thing. However, when introducing them into the Revive series, their designs were changed. I mean, the armour and the helmets were basically the same. However, it was the colour scheme that was changed from grey and black to dark blue. And why was this changed? Now, supposedly Rusty Davis has said that despite this colour scheme being synonymous with the Sontarans, he decided to change it because he thought if they were black and grey, they'd be too similar to the Judoon, an original monster he'd created that had appeared in the series previous. Now, you could argue that he should have kept the traditional colour scheme, seeing as the Judoon hadn't been around for like 2 seconds and the Sontarans had been around since the 1970s. However, he decided to change it, and I've never had much against the blue colour scheme. I think it works alright. However, there's no doubt that the black and grey colour scheme just works so much better, and that seems to be what Chris Chibnall is going for. If you look in the set photos, he's gone back to that classic grey and black colour scheme, which I'm a big fan of. Obviously, as I said, I have nothing against the blue. However, I think it's nice that the Sontarans haven't been around for a while, and now he's bringing them back. He's decided to slightly alter the costume to make it more classic, and I quite like that, especially as you're not going to have those complications with the Judoon Ray. Yes, the Judoon have reintroduced last series, however, you've not got that same stream of villains that you had in the RTD era, so there's no reason why you can't change the colour scheme, and I think it's great for doing this, making them seem more classic, and yeah, I'm very happy with that move. As well, the armour's changed. Now, if you look, the armour looks much more like a samurai armour, like a knight armour, and I quite like this change. Obviously, that's nothing we've really seen from the Sontarans before. Yeah, I think it's a really nice reinterpretation of the Sontarans outfit, and I think it re-emphasises their military roots and making it seem more samurai. Yeah, it just makes the Sontarans stand out a bit more. It's a really nice addition to their costume. I'm a big fan of the redesign that they seem to be going for with the Sontarans. But yes, thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, drop a sub, and hit that notification bell to stay notified for all my latest videos. What do you think of the news that the Sontarans are returning in a fully fledged story? Personally, I'm a big fan of it. I like the Sontarans, and it's nice that they're being given another shot as a credible threat. What do you think of that? Are you happy? Are you not happy? And what do you think think of their redesign? Personally, I'm a big fan of their redesign, and I know a lot of people will be judging that it's going back to their classic roots. However, what do you think? Would you rather they stuck with the blue colour scheme? I know you are a fan of the samurai look, or would you rather they stuck more traditional in terms of their armour? Whatever you think, drop your thoughts in the comment section below. I'd be really interested to hear it. But yes, thank you guys for watching, and of course, a goodbye.